Hey YouTube, this is a strip down on a AEG M4. This is an Arthurian Excalibur. There are modifications in this rifle which I will point out as we see through the video. There are certain variations between different manufacturers of M4s, but we will cover that in this video. So without me holding you any longer, let's go straight into the video. Let's start with removing the stock from the stock tube. This is easy, you just decompress the lever, slide it all the way back as far as it can go. Then the pin, you have to then pull the rest of the way down and allow you to slide it off the stock tube. Okay, put that out of the way. Now the stock tube is now ready to come off, so you undo the castellated nut here, which is undone counterclockwise. So all we have to do is just feed it off as seen, screw it all the way back. Now Arthurians, these have a keyway, so you need to twist it 20 degrees ish to the right as far as it can go, and that will then allow it to slide off. I've got to take the battery out first. And then once the battery's out, this should be able to slide straight out. Other stock tubes on other manufacturers are just a screw that's inside the stock tube that you undo, and that then come out. So with this next section, we need to remove the upper and lower. So to separate the upper and lower receiver, we undo this screw, which will allow us to push the pin out through the other side. So I'm just going to put these cables one way out the way, and with an Allen key we'll undo the screw. Now I find once you've got the screw all the way up, I then use the Allen key to push the screw, which will allow the pin to come out the other side. And you'll be able to see that in a minute as I will demonstrate. So here we go. So the pin is now sticking out. As you can see, just enough so I can get my fingers on, and that will slide out. As easy as that. With the pin out, I just put these together so don't lose them. Okay, so with the pin out, that should allow me to slide the lowest lever from the upper receiver, as you can see. Place that down there. I'll probably do another video on taking this entire upper section out. So for now, we're just going to remove the inner barrel and hop-up unit. These are aftermarket, so a 6.02 barrel and a Maxx Pro hop-up. Now moving on, so we want to get this gearbox out of the lower receiver. So there's a number of things that needs to come out. Other manufacturers are different, so these springs normally rotate inside the gearbox. It's not so on this one, it's slightly different. What we'll do is we need to take the handguard, this pin, that pin, the mag release, and of course the bolt catch. On other guns you won't need to do the bolt catch, but on Arthurian the bolt catch acts as a release for the bolt, because the bolt locks back, allowing you to set your hop up. So this must come out. So other than that, again, with Arthurian, as you can see, there's a screw here which allows us to remove the spring. Quite a nice design, so you can do a quick release. Now be careful when you unscrew this, the spring is under a lot of tension. This is an aftermarket M100, as you can see. With that out the way, that will then allow us to remove the rest of the gearbox. So moving on to the next thing that we want to take off is the handguard. Now the handle, it has two screws, Phillips screws, that holds the base into place, and inside there you'll have the motor. So I like to keep my thumb over it just to keep the tension of the spring off the motor, which would be pushing it against that end cap. Sometimes it can be sticky, sometimes it can jump up, so I just like to take the tension off it just to make it easier to unscrew. And with the 2 screws removed, with a little bit of a wriggle, there you go, now it pops up nice and easy, and that will now expose the motor and the 2 contactors. As you can see, the positive as in red and the negative in the back as black. You can see that it's important that we get these in the right rotation to make sure that your motor rotates the right direction once it's in the gun. So we've got to make sure that these are orientated properly. But if I just pull these wires off the contactors, just push them out of the way, that should then allow the motor to slide out nice and easy, and there you go, that's the motor out. Now, as you can see, some motors are labelled. This one has red painted over that pin, and the other one's left, so that allows you to know which orientation of the positive and negative wires to put on the motor. Now, inside the handguard there are 2 screws, which I'm trying to show you right now with the torch. It's not fantastic, but I will be able to demonstrate this more clearly in this picture. As you can see, these 2 Phillips screws sit opposite each other. Be very careful when you undo these, they're a bugger to put back in. So normally what I do is, as I unscrew it, I hold the handle up away from the gun, which keeps the screws into place. So as you see, these screws are actually still sat inside the holes. I'll just remove these 2 cables to the motor out the way from the 2 holes that we could see earlier from inside the handguard, and I will just place the handguard out of the way. Right, now with that removed, we have the mag release, which is seen here. It's spring loaded, so there's a spring underneath there, and it's just a small Phillips screw. Okay, so all we got to do is undo the Phillips screw, nice and easy. Just push it in, and then just to get a purchase, and then undo the screw off there. Once this is completely removed, it will now expose the spring underneath. So we just pop the spring out, and we will now flip the gearbox over, and you can see I can just pull the rest of the mag release out the other side. Right, so with this removed, we then again use the Allen key that we used to undo the pin at the front, because it's the same size, and undo the screw to release the pin over the back. Now, because we've gone and done it in this order, this pin should be very loose and very easy to come back. You might not even require to push it through. Literally, it's, as you can see, it's already fallen out on its own. I didn't even need to push that. Okay, so that's now out of the way. So you can see those pins are removed, the handle's been removed. Now we have the trigger pin that pushes in from this side down. So to remove it, we have to go over to the other side of the lower receiver, and with the screwdriver just push it through, and that then should expose the pin to the other side. The same way, just pull the pin out, as you can see, and you can set it out as you can see, and that will now leave us with well, as you can see, the gearbox is pretty loose, but we have the bolt catch still in place. So we need to remove that as it actually sits through the gearbox underneath, and what that'll do is that will allow the lever on the other side to release the bolt catch for the hop up. Now, we have a small pin which we now have to knock down this direction, so towards the back of the gun. So using the Phillips screwdriver and a hammer, I just pop it out slightly, just again to expose the pin. With the pin exposed, I then just grab a set of long nose pliers, grab the end of the pin, and then should just pop. There you go, it's just slid out back towards me, and that is now loose, but not ready to come off yet, because on the other side you can see that there is a the latch to push down. That will then allow the bolt catch to come out. Okay, with that loose, that should be everything that held that gearbox into the low receiver completely out the way. Now, I do find it does catch, so you have to have a good grip on it and it will pop out. This is generally the direction that you pull these gearboxes out. Some are easy depending on the manufacturer, some a little bit more troublesome. I find with the Arthurian it is a little bit more tricky. Okay, so we're down to just the gearbox housing. Okay, with the, let's see, we have these set of 4 screws at the top, the one at the front. Underneath that latch, which is for part of the bolt catch mechanism, underneath there is another screw hiding underneath there. Okay, so we need to remove that out the way. That is a Phillips. We've got to be very careful because there is a spring that sits underneath here. It's very small and very easy to lose, so hold it down and then slowly release it while lifting it up, and that will now expose the spring inside that recess. It's very small, very easy to lose, so be very mindful when you're removing that on this particular gun. Obviously other guns not have this issue, and we can just, on a standard gearbox, we can just remove these, as you can see. Now you need to use a star fitting, as you can see, which is what I generally use. You can kind of use a Allen key, but I really would recommend against this a star head. I'm not sure what size it was, but it is definitely the better way to go, as you don't want to damage these screws. Now they are various in different sizes, so it would be a good idea, as I do this, is to lay it out roughly as it is seen on the gearbox, just to prevent any confusion, so you know when you are putting it back together that you've got everything going to the right place. Now, okay, so with all the screws off, this should separate. I'm finding something's catching, which I can see is one of the gears is still sitting on the top bearing there, so I'm just going to, well, I don't want to force that yet because that ain't gonna go, so I will just use the end of the screwdriver just to pop the pin back in, and that should separate. Perfect. Okay, so this is the inside of your the gearbox. So what I'm going to do is I'll just remove the piston, get that out of the way. Obviously it's an aftermarket Nuprol aluminium piston head, which is the screw in the inside to take that off, and then you've got the cylinder head. So we want to take that off. The best way to do it is to release the spring over here. With the spring loose, that should allow us to lift this entire section up, and we just can slide that out, and then we can separate the cylinder head complete out of the way. Then we have the gears, so these simply just lift out as so. I will shim these. That I did have a shim on there, but it definitely needed more. We don't like any movement in the gearbox, especially with this, because it's a Nuprol, if you can see, 13:1 high speed gear set, so we don't want any sideways movement, so I will shim that when we put the gun back together. Again, an aftermarket trigger, which again there's a spring underneath there, so be a little bit careful with that. And then we have our mechanical trigger. Now this has been causing me lots of problems, so this is what is going to be the next upgrade in this gun. So just undo the small Phillips screw which holds that into place, and that will be replaced by a MOSFET. Again, that will be on the next video. But for now, I'm just going to remove the switch out of the way, and there's a small spring just on the pin above, and then you just very carefully give it a little wriggle, and this should then free it up. Yep, and then once that's released, that will allow me to pull all the cables out the way. So again, this is all apart. Again, the selector is still on the other side, that can stay in. And obviously the safety latch there can also stay into place, because we don't need to upgrade that in any way. But you will see that on the next video when I assemble it. So the piston here, it's an Arthurian piston. It really nice. That in fact it has a full steel teeth. A lot of manufacturers out there, you buy the guns, they all have maybe the first 4 or 5 lead teeth as steel, the rest as plastic. Don't like that. You know, you want some strength. The other thing is you want to look for is a good compression. So I should be able to put a lot of force against that, and as you can see, it's fantastic. Again, it's just because I have the CNC machined Nuprol aluminium cylinder, which actually has a slightly thicker O-ring on there. Again, you've got to ensure that there's plenty of silicone grease on that. Don't go too heavy on it, but just put a nice layer of silicone grease around that, and that will ensure you to have a good seal. Obviously, these are the tools that I've used. Just the star fitting, a small Phillips head, a long set of pliers, and a hammer. We will go into having another video to reassemble this with all the goodies inside, so you can see all the modifications.